Hi Floss Tube, my name's Arlene and this is my very first Floss Tube video. I hope I'm going to do this okay, and I hope that when I'm done I can figure out how to upload it to Floss Tube correctly, but we'll see how it all turns out. I want to tell you a little bit about myself and how I came to be here. I have looked hard to find if there's any rules or instructions of exactly what makes a Floss Tube video or what shouldn't be here, and I haven't found such a list, so I hope I'm going to do everything correctly, but if not, I hope someone will politely comment and tell me if there's something I should be doing differently. My biggest thing is, as I've discovered Floss Tube, I've seen so many of you do such amazing cross-stitch projects, and I do cross-stitch. It's how I started my stitching life. But I don't just do cross-stitch. I do a lot of needlework. I call what I do needlework because that just covers everything. It's the all-encompassing term. And I haven't seen too much of stitching beyond cross-stitch, and that could just be just the videos that I've watched, or it could just be that's what Floss Tube is. But I guess I'll learn more once I figure this all out. So I just want to tell you how I came to this. I want to say about a year or so ago I learned about Floss Tube. It might have been last summer. I read a lot of blogs, stitching blogs. It's been, over the last number of years, my way of separating my day, my work life from my personal life, often coming home and sort of trolling through my list of blogs just helps move my mind from one place to the next. And one of the blogs I follow is the Spinster Stitcher. If you are a blog reader and you enjoy a good read, you should check out her blog. I don't think she does Floss Tube videos, but I think it was on her blog that I first read about her, or read about Floss Tube videos. She was writing about her discovery and watching them and enjoying them, and every so often she writes about watching them. And I know at the time when she first wrote about Floss Tube, I went onto YouTube, onto Floss Tube, sort of randomly found and started to watch a few of them, and at the time, great, wonderful, there's some folks who like lots of cross-stitch projects out there. It wasn't anything that really grabbed me at that moment in my life. A few weeks back, maybe even close to a couple months ago at this point, there is a new podcast series out there. It's called We Talk Fiber. And if you enjoy listening to podcasts, you might want to check that out. I learned about it on a Facebook group, a needlework group, that it's all about different needlework designers and all kinds of folks, and including knitting and needlework folks. And Vanna Pfeiffer of the Twisted Stitcher was one of their early guests, maybe the second or third guest on We Talk Fiber. And I recognize Vanna's name. She was one of the, she has been one of the blogs that have been on my blog list that I would see, read her stuff every now and then. But listening to her on the podcast was really great. And she, of course, mentioned Floss Tube there. And it made me want to come back and watch her Floss Tube videos. And that just got me more excited about this whole Floss Tube thing. And I started watching some of the folks she recommended, and then just some of the videos that just started popping up once one video finishes and the next one starts. And I don't quite understand the whole process. I get that some people follow each other, and I get that the Floss Tube knows to recommend certain ones. I'm not sure how people are going to find this video. Maybe I will understand that more once I load it up. Maybe I need to go and comment to other people, please come watch me. Maybe you will discover me the same way I discovered some folks, with it just randomly showing up. I just, last week, was watching someone who was posting her first Floss Tube video, and I thought, well, she could do it. I was away this weekend. I was driving home. And when I was driving home, I was thinking, okay, so that woman just posted her first Floss Tube video. I think there's other people who are just posting their first Floss Tube video. And I thought, all right, I can do this. And I'm going to give it a try. And even though I'm going to show you some things outside the cross-stitch world today, we'll see how it goes. And we'll see if there's folks that are interested out there. So I'll just share that some of the folks that I've seen, Stitcherista, Danielle, I've seen some of your stuff. mischievous stitcher. Those were recommendations that came from Vana. I know that I saw some other videos that were recommendations or shout outs that Vana did, that, or my FlossTube led me through Vana. The one I just watched last week, who was a new person, was Michelle from the Striped Rose. So thank you for inspiring me to give this whole FlossTube thing a try. So I wanted to share with you my story of how I got started stitching, because I have a clear story, and I suppose some folks know maybe it was a mother or grandmother or aunt or someone who taught them, or whatever their story is. And my story doesn't come in that way. I know that when I was little, I have two sisters, an older sister, younger sister. I'm the middle sister. My sisters and I did little crafty projects during the summer, little crafty things, nothing major. My mom didn't do, she crocheted, and she crocheted some sweaters and scarves and a number of things. But that was the extent of her needlework, and it was never anything that really, she never sat us down and said, we want to teach you how to do this or anything. In those times we did crafty kind of things. I feel like there was once or twice I was probably introduced with a little cross-stitch kit from a local store. Kind of like how a Michael's is today. There was a store in my town called the Craft Basket. It's long gone, but it's like a Michael's. I feel like I had little introductions to simple cross-stitch in kit form when I was little, but nothing that really grabbed me, and certainly no adult influence, which makes my story all more odd. So when I was in high school, and I can clearly date this, it was like when I was 15, it was probably the summer between my sophomore and junior year in high school. I was 15, not yet 16. I grew up in Connecticut, and the driving age in Connecticut is 16, and that's an important part of the story. So I wasn't yet driving, but I was at that age where I really wanted the independence. I got in the mail this magazine, and I still have this issue to this day. It actually says sample issue. And cross stitch and country crafts, I've seen this on some folks' FlossTube videos. I don't know if this is literally the sample issue when it first came out. This would have been in the late 80s. I don't know, like, if they were promoting this. What is so odd, and there's no other way to say it, it's like karma out there. There is no explanation of how this came addressed to my house, to my name. I still have inside of it the, what was on the outside. It's barely holding together, but it would have been on the outside, and there it is addressed to me, to my name, and it's, here, won't you, don't you want to, get a subscription to this magazine? How my name got on a mailing list for a needlework magazine is a mystery. So I remember getting this and paging through the pages and coming to the picture for this project. And I couldn't believe it. I remember thinking, how in the world? Like, you start with a blank piece of fabric, and you get that just by threads, and then check this out. On this side of the page, there's actually a close-up of her face, and I just remember being so amazed. Could I do that? And I know one of the rules is not to show patterns, but I can show you, there was the listing of threads. That was a lot of DMC threads at the time. And I can remember in some moment thinking, I want to do this. I want to create this. And I'm pretty sure it was like either during the summer or maybe right at the beginning of the summer, saying to my mom, I want to go to the Craft Basket. I want to buy some stuff. And somehow getting there, or maybe we were going there for some other reason, and deciding I am going to get some fabric and all those DMC flosses. And I started piling those DMC flosses up. I didn't even know enough to wait until they went on sale. I was just getting them. And my mom looks at this pile and she said something to me that I will never forget. She looks at me and says, or she gives a face. And I knew what that face meant. And I said, Mom, you don't have to pay for this. I'm using my babysitting money. I'm buying this for myself. And she gave me a face and she said, I don't know why. You are never going to finish that. You are just wasting your money. And in all honesty, at that time, I probably did have a bit of a reputation of getting excited about starting something and maybe never quite finishing it. But there was something about the way she said that made me think, I'm going to do this. And I did. And it was a project I worked on in, like, my brain associates it with my junior year of high school. And then I even, in a brave sort of way, went and had it professionally framed, which was just not anything my family ever knew what to do. And here is, and I refer to her as one of my babies. And let me get her close. I've got this light here. This baby, to me, is my first cross stitch. Again, there were some little things from when I was younger, and I know how absurd it is to say this is my first project, but in a lot of ways, it was. Now, this hangs on a wall in my study downstairs. There are two other babies, or what I call my three babies, that are similar, that all three were patterns from cross-stitching country craft magazines. And I decided I'll save the story of the other two babies for another time, but this is my first one, and this started me on cross-stitching. And so I cross-stitched when I was in high school and then into college. And it was just something I enjoyed. I started collecting DMC floss and all of that. Past college, and again, it wasn't completely into stitching then. It was what I would call at the level of hobby. It is well beyond hobby now. It is passion. It is part of my life. But at that point, it was hobby. My first couple years out of college, where I lived at that time, I started bobbin lace, and that is another part of my life, doing lace work. And maybe at some other point, if there's interest, I could share about that, but that, again, I don't know whether I'm supposed to or not share about other things other than stitching, but bobbin lace is a whole nother important part of my world. And the reason I'm bringing it up now is the woman who I was taking lessons from, she owned a small needlework store as well as doing lace supplies. And in that needlework store, or in the store where I'd go once a week in the evenings and have lessons with a couple of other women, I would start poking around, and I discovered there was a whole nother world out there besides cross stitch, which I didn't know. I had no idea. And so I started to look around, and I found and decided, and so in my mind, this project that I'm about to show you is my first step beyond cross stitch. So this, and I pulled all these things out. I have a special place where I keep sort of all the major projects that I've done, the patterns and things, and that's what I was able to find and pull out these items. So this, which is called Wheels of Color by Ginny Morrow, as I understand it, she is no longer living. Her daughter, I believe, keeps her mother's designs alive and republishes them, but I'm not sure about that. Wheels of Color. And there was something about this that just really appealed to me. It actually had a few different variations on, this one had all black. This has the variations of gray. This was all grays. It appealed to me. And it may be hard to tell, but there's all kinds of different stitches. And again, this was my introduction to things outside of cross stitch. This would be what you would call counted canvas work. I didn't know that term at the time. It calls for 18 count. I'd have to see exactly how they phrase it. It says 18 count canvas. I didn't know that the word canvas meant something different than Ada. So I had gone, I didn't buy the supplies from the woman at the store, and I don't know why. There might have been I don't know why. This pattern definitely came from that woman in the store, but I know I'd gone somewhere else. And it was mostly DMC floss. There was actually some Anchor colors. This is when I was living elsewhere. But anyway, I remember going to another store and needing to purchase a piece of 18 count, and I asked for Aida. I didn't know there was a difference. So I did this project on 18 count Aida, and I have sort of proved to myself that you can. It may not be ideal. It may have come out better had I done it on 18 count canvas. But I consider this project now at this point done nearly 20 years ago as my transition piece in two ways. It was my first piece that was understanding a world beyond cross stitch, that needlework could be beyond cross stitch. And it was the beginning of needlework being a really important part of my nearly daily life, that I started to create a place on the couch, but a place where I would do it. And I started to form a routine. And that's evolved, obviously, and changed over the years. And so, actually, I had moved during the time I was working on this. But this piece has hung on my walls all this time. A little dusty. This, and this is before I knew about differences of types of glass, so you're seeing a reflection. And I'm sorry, let me see if I can do this a little better here. This is Wheels of Color. It was done, I don't know if you can tell, with the gradation of grays, in that you got the dark gray over in this corner going to the lighter gray in this corner of the background. All the different kinds of stitches, so they're the same stitch family from top to bottom, if I'm remembering. No, I'm sorry. I think it's the same stitch family going across in rows, but different variations of the same stitch family, and then the same color family as it gets darker from top to bottom. And it taught me so much. It just introduced me to so much. And there was still plenty more to learn after this. But it was an introduction to a great world. So, ever since this piece, I have done all kinds of things. I have learned different types of needlework, like hardanger, black work, different types of surface embroidery. I try a little bit of everything most of the time, and this seems to be different from most of the Floss Tube videos that I watch. I basically work on one project at a time. That's just the way I am. And I see a lot of Floss Tube videos where lots of people are working on many projects at a time. It's just what works for me. Just to show you that even over the various projects that I have, I still, every so often, will work on a cross-stitch project. This one was from a few years ago. This is an ink circles design that's all cross-stitch. It was just, I'm a mathy kind of person. I like geometric things, and ink circles designs often appeal to me. This is actually the only one I've ever done. And so that is here. Now, I was looking at this trying to remember. I'm just remembering now. I forgot to look it up. So I did different fabric and different colors than the original chart. I'm pretty sure this was on 36 count over 2 over 2. And what I loved about it, it was a variegated thread, and this is the part I forgot to look up was what it was. But you could see the variations of blue, in and out, changed around. And I just remember going into a store knowing, I went in knowing I wanted some blue, and I would sort of just know it when I found it. Knowing this would be the right one kind of thing. And I found the right one that I liked, and it worked for me. And I really liked that one. This is a few years ago, and probably the last big cross stitch that I did. And that's why I decided to show this in my first Floss Tube video, because I actually don't have that many cross stitches to show you, cross stitch items to show you. So I thought I would just show you cross stitch at the beginning, and then hoping that this works out and there's interest, I could give you a little tour of my various other needlework projects from over the years. So let me tell you about what I'm working on now. So when I say work, I like to do a lot of counted canvas work. To me, that's another kind of big term, but basically canvas work often done on 18 count with lots of stitches of all kinds. And I have done some of my own designing, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. What I'm working on now is not my own design, but certainly my own color scheme. There is a great designer by the name of Anne Streit-Kurtz. This is a pattern. I'm just trying to get this off so you can see it straight. This is her pattern. I saw some folks online who were doing this. It's called Ruby Razzle Dazzle. The colors did nothing for me, but the pattern appealed to me. And so I decided to get it, and there's a nice little touch when it makes sense to you. So this was the kind of thing that I ordered directly from her. Like, I don't know if she actually sells to stores. This was ordered directly from her through her website. And I am literally almost done. Like I got maybe 2 more nights of work on it. And I think I need to hold a piece of fabric behind it so you can see it the best. So my own color scheme, as you could see, is more in the blue and blue-violet family. And the reason why, what I'm going to explain next, is that I was working on it, tootling along, because I was doing my own color scheme. Sometimes you don't get the thread amounts right, and I ran out of Krynic metallic, and I had to wait a few weeks. My store got it in, but then it took me another couple weeks till I could get there. So I actually was doing a very unusual thing, which is I had to put this aside and work on another project. All right, back to that in a moment. But just to show you, so it's got Krynic metallic, pearl cotton number 5. This is Rainbow Gallery, very velvet thread is right there. The brown color is a dinky dye floss that I know many of you talk about using dinky dyes. Literally all I have left to do on it, you could see it's right here. It's this part right here. I need to finish this band. To finish the brown here, and then it needs another run of the little blues, maybe you could see there, and that's it. It will be done. The canvas, which is really cool. So this is an 18 count canvas, and for those of you who, I don't know, maybe there's some folks who have never used canvas before. I'm trying to get it close. Difference between using canvas and, you know, Aida or linen or something. It's all holes. It's all threads and holes. It's just a little different. What this is like, kind of like an overdyed canvas, or you know, it's got some color to it, which just makes it really neat. So this is literally a work in progress, but almost done. Another couple and maybe 1 or 2 more nights. But as I said, I'm usually a 1 project at a time kind of person, but because I was forced to stop, because I ran out of threads and I had to wait for them to come in, I usually have in my mind what the next project will be, and I try to make sure I assemble all the needed fabric, threads, whatever, so that literally the day after I'm done, I'm ready to go on the next project. So I had been ready to go on the next project the night I ran out of Krynic, and I'm like, all right, I literally can't do anything else. I had to put that aside, and I started working on this next thing, which, so ironically, I actually have 2 works in progress right now, but I'll be going back to this within the next couple of nights. So this is a magazine called New Stitches. It's from the UK. It's an old magazine. What I've been referring to in the last year or so is my local needlework store. It's still a little bit of a drive, but it's become my local needlework store. It's called Needleworker's Delight in Metuchen, New Jersey, which is a great place. Especially, it seems like many of you are really into cool fabric, overdyed fabrics and stuff. They're also Silk Weaver's Delight. They have great fabrics. It's just not been something I've been into, but check them out if you're interested in the cool overdyed fabrics. They also have a huge selection of like old magazines and they ones that you just don't see, like this. And there's some really neat projects in here, and I'm flipping through their things and I see this. Ooh, jeez, it's coming loose. And I mentioned before I do lace work, and this is like a tablecloth. Needleworker's Delight is also a distributor of all the Zweigart things. So they have everything. That is to say, everything that Zweigart still makes. And when you're working out of a magazine that's 15 years old, they don't necessarily make everything, including all the colors of something. So this so appealed to me. This tablecloth, they still make them, but only in very limited colors. It is called the Westerland tablecloth. Zweigart, I would have loved it in a dark color. They don't make it in a dark color anymore, but what I'm doing it's on, let's see if I can show you. So, all right, this was my little sampling. Ignore this. I still have not pulled this out, so ignore that. So this is as far as I got before I stopped because the chronic thread came in and I went back to the other project. And you could see this is all cross stitch, and then there's a lot of stitching with one thread, and some of that one thread stitching is cross stitches and some of it's back stitching. So it's sort of going back. Can't tell if you can see. There we go. So I've only gone back to some of it. You know, some nights I feel like doing full-on cross stitch. Some nights I feel like doing the one thread. The cross stitches are done with 3 strands, and the other stuff is with 1 strand. So it's just what I felt like doing on any given night. That whole center section of this little tablecloth is like 14 count Aida, and it's like sort of meant to go on a little side table or whatever. It's full dimensions. I measured it at one point. Maybe it's 20, maybe it's 30 inch by 30 inch total. I don't know. But there are some patterns that are put out there to fit exactly this center part. And this is one of them. And so it's just a nice little lacy design. And like I said, another couple nights I'll finish up what I can't call Ruby Razzle Dazzle because it's not ruby, but my own version of it. Sapphire blue. The blue piece is what mostly happens in my mind. And then I'll be working on my lacy tablecloth. My plans going forward as I'm working on that, I've been playing around with some designing things of what will be coming next, but that's still in the back of my mind. If this goes okay, if I figure out how to upload it, if there's some folks who like it, and if there's folks that are interested, I would love to share more about the things that I do. I have lots of other stitching, mostly hanging on my walls from over the years, of all different kinds, and I would love to share some of that with you. So I guess that's about it. That's been about a half hour worth of me yappering on here. Thank you so much for watching and listening. I so appreciate being introduced to this wonderful world of FlossTube, and I'm looking forward to watching even more and learning more from all of you wonderful folks. Thanks so much. Bye.